Hello!
How?
We're here to do our next episode of Verses, which we will be reviewing. What are we reviewing?
My pick for last time for this video was Cradle of Filth, Hammer of the Witches album. And I didn't want to dig for the album. So there's the cover. You probably can't even see that really. And that's the one that's the censored cover because the other one was uncensored. If you're not familiar with Cradle of Filth, they're a British black metal band. And they've been around forever, since probably the early to mid 90s. And I don't know why our camera keeps jerking. Hopefully that won't come out in the video. Anyway. They're like a gothic type black metal band. They have a lot of different time signatures and a lot of different influences in their music. You can hear different things if you're familiar with them at all. But I guess their first few clumps of albums were considered essential, and then by a lot of fans' opinions, they got off track and made albums that weren't very popular with the hardcore fans or the original fans. And with this album, Hammer of the Witches, which came out last year, I think, a lot of critics and a lot of fans say that that's one of their best albums in years. And it's back to their original gothic sound, I guess. So I don't know if they're comparing just the lyrics or the sound in general, or if it's both. But we listened to this album, and I bought the album when it came out. And I like Cradle of Filth. I have a lot of their other stuff, quite a bit of their other stuff. And I will say that my initial listening to it, when I first got it, I listened to it once, maybe twice. It didn't leave an impression. I don't remember really liking it or not liking it. We listened to it today for Verses, and it could have been my mood. I don't know what it was, but it just seemed like that it was, is this over yet? Is it over yet? Is this the same song? Or, the lead singer, Danny Filth, has a high screeching vocal. He also has a lower register, which he doesn't seem to use much at all. And then on this album, in the past they've had female vocalists do a little bit of backing tracks here and there, and some interludes, but they have a permanent member that's a female vocalist, and from what I could tell, she doesn't do much on this album, not as much as I would prefer her to do. And then black metal is notorious for a specific sound as far as a double bass drum and quite repetitive guitar. I don't know if you could call them power chords. I don't know how you describe that, but there's not a lot of lead guitar solos in the songs. So it's traditional black metal in that sense, but it's the vocals that just kills me. It's just I have a hard time with the vocals more than anything else. But I'm done.
Okay. So for me, I really love the gothic theme. I'm totally into tons of types of gothic type material as far as music and reading and movies and clothing even. However, for me, I know you guys have heard me say before, I don't do black metal. I don't do death metal, I don't do black metal, and I don't do thrash metal. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. So I would have to say Cradle of Filth is probably the only black metal band that I have really said, oh, I kind of like them. But listening to this, I couldn't. I really couldn't.
You had to.
Well, yeah, I had to. I did, but it was hard. It was very hard for me. That, like, when it was melodic, because there are interchanges where it's melodic, and even symphonic. I started to be like, oh, well, maybe, no, there goes that again, and I was anxious. It makes me anxious. I just can't do it. I can't. So, as far as Danny Filth goes, and his vocal, you can't understand what he's saying. More so, you can understand him more so than some of the other types of black metal vocalists I've listened
Which is a big thing
to.
with you.
Yeah, it's a huge thing with me. But you can't understand what he's saying. And like Brenton said, there's a lot of high screeching. Almost sounds like a hawk to me, is what it sounds like.
And I personally I don't know how he can do that type of vocal.
Me
I mean,
either.
I guess it's a gift or an art. I don't know. It's something he's perfected.
I mean, I'm not saying anything against him. He's a talented artist. I mean, for him to get up there and be able, this is their what? How many albums?
I couldn't even tell you. I'd
I mean,
say
he does
12
that.
or 15. I'm just guessing.
To be able to do that high screechy vocal and
And he's a very smart guy too.
he is extremely smart, and I've seen interviews with him. I adore him as a person and his image. I adore his music, not so much.
Well, this album.
This album, yeah, this album.
That other album I got on vinyl a while back, we listened to that, and it's so much more listenable.
Absolutely, I agree.
And it's one of their earlier ones. I couldn't tell you the discography exactly, but I know it's one of their earlier ones.
Like I said, their imagery is fantastic. They definitely do not need to change anything about their imagery as far as their band covers go, their album covers, their band image. You know, Danny Filth as a whole, he's incredibly talented and a very intelligent man, and I'm sure he's fun to be around. But this album was very hard for me to listen to. I did. And then I listened to something else afterwards to kind of take my mind away from it. So I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, you know, I like black metal, and I like a lot of the underground metal. I don't know what it's called specifically if it's not black metal. I don't know how many sub-genres there is. But I like a lot of vocals that you can understand, because it doesn't matter to me if I know what they're saying or not. But it's the high screeching is what I just can't deal with. And then initially, when I first got into black metal, I think it was, I mean, I don't know if it was one specific band, but whatever I was listening to at the time initially, the double bass drum, or the blast beats as they call them, I didn't like. I just think that takes away from the music because there's too much going on and it distracts you from anything. So you add that with high screeching vocals, and it's too much. And I understand it's extreme metal. It's supposed to be over the top, you know, and it is. You know, I understand that.
Yeah, it almost sounds confusing. Like it almost sounds like chaos or confusion.
Which is probably what they're going for at times. But like you said, you know, you hear an interlude or an instrumental part, and you think, oh, this is going to be really good. And then it breaks into something. It's like they just ruined it right there.
Exactly.
And, you know, with a lot of other symphonic black metal or just black metal in general, you know, a lot of the underground bands, the unsigned bands, are more guttural vocals, and they're more unpolished and lo-fi type stuff, which I prefer that actually, because it's not as in your face. It's more. They're not trying to shock you so much, you know, around every turn. It's the same all the way across. And I understand that Cradle of Filth is one of just a few black metal bands or extreme metal bands that have, you know, they've surpassed that underground level to where they've become, I won't say mainstream, but mainstream in the genre of black metal. They're considered, a lot of people like Cradle of Filth, a lot of people hate them. that could be said for a handful of black metal bands that they consider has sold out, or they're not pure black metal because they're not lo-fi, and they've added all these gothic elements and this, the female vocals and the male. There's a few songs that I know, like The Ghost in the Fog, I think is the name of one, where it has an older gentleman doing the intro. They have several songs like that, and a lot of purists, it's like, that's not what you do. But I think they've broadened the genre with a handful of other bands, at least 2 or 3 other bands. So what they've done, what they've accomplished, is very important as a band. But this album specifically, I would like to talk to people on a one-to-one basis that really like this album. And I'm curious as to what they hear that I don't hear compared to their earlier albums. And I'm not saying that I could sit down and listen to every Cradle of Filth album. I don't mean back to back, but I mean, start with their first album and listen to it all the way through and not have the same feeling. I'm not saying that I would or wouldn't. I would have to do that before I would know, but I think that I would be able to do that a lot easier than I would this album.
So what would you rank this one? How many spins?
I could go from now on and never listen to it again. Because if I wanted to listen to Cradle of Filth again, and I have a tendency to do this, I have a few songs on my iPod, and the songs that I prefer them to do is cover songs of other people's music.
Like, what's that one that we listen to a lot?
Devil Woman.
Yeah.
They do a cover of Devil Woman,
That's
which is
incredible.
a Cliff Richard song. And I love that version. And I think King Diamond even does some of the background vocals in the chorus. And that I never get tired of that song. It's, and they've done some other stuff. They did a Twisted Sister cover. They've done Ozzy Osbourne covers. They did Mr. Crowley. And I would prefer that. I can listen to that because I'm familiar with the song and the lyrics, and it's their version of it. So I like to hear different versions of familiar songs. But if I was going to listen to Cradle of Filth again, other than those select songs, I would listen to that album I'd mentioned that we listened to a while back. That's an earlier album. Although I do have a lot of their CDs, I listened to their first couple CDs that I have. As far as their chronological, the first couple that I have, just because that's probably what I could tolerate all the way through. But on the other hand, I don't usually listen to one album by one artist all the way through because everything's on my iPod. It's on random. Even by genre, if I'm specific in genre, it's usually still random when it comes to the bands. So I wouldn't give it any more spins.
So you're giving it 0 spins?
0 spins.
Wow! 0 spins.
Because there's nothing that I listen to that stands out that I want to hear again. There really isn't.
I agree.
And I bought the album, and I'm a fan of this band.
What was the name of the album that we like? Do you remember what the name of it is?
The one that I mentioned? It has those 2 girls on the cover.
Yeah.
And there's like blood, and one's a vampire or something.
Yeah.
It's not Vampire, because Vampire is their first EP. I think this was their first full-length album after their EP. I don't want to give a name because I'm not sure. I could look it up, but
look it up.
I don't know how many minutes we're running here.
For me, I was actually going to say I'd give it 3 spins. 1 spin for this time I listened to it prior to today, 1 spin for today, and 1 spin maybe sometime in the future if I ever feel like listening to it again. So I'm going to give it 3 spins. It's just not... I actually really have to be in the mood to listen to it, and I'm not in that mood very often.
It's The Principle of Evil Made Flesh.
That's the one that we like.
Yeah, and then, which is their first full length, and then Dusk in Her Embrace, and the first one's in 94, Dusk in Her Embrace was 96, Cruelty and the Beast was 98, and Midian in 2000. After that, a lot of fans would say they started to go downhill as far as they got not downhill, but they got away from that original sound that they had with all the albums came after that.
So next time on Versus, we're going to go back. Old school back. And
that's even before there was a school.
I'm going to go with something completely off of the wall. Phantom, stop. I'm going to do something completely off the wall. And I'm going to do Patti Page, Indiscretion. So we're going to listen to this and we'll let you know. So that's all we got this time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Keep those comments coming. We love to talk to you guys. See you soon.